Now you are looking at a man in whose hands a phosphorus munition detonated. The poor man's body was burning at a temperature of over 800 degrees Celsius. No one believed he would survive, including himself. Despite everything, he still did it. The only question is what it cost him, and what the hell are these symbols doing on United States military equipment? We'll find out right now. Make yourselves comfortable, dear ones, because this is terrifying. So the person in this photo is named Henri Ervin, and before his body was burned by white phosphorus, he looked like this. Little is known about Henri's childhood. He was born on May 8, 1921 in the city of Adamsville, United States of America. He grew up in a very religious family. By the way, according to Ervin himself, God never let him down when he called for help. In 1941, in the midst of World War II, 20-year-old Mr. Ervin joined the Army Reserve in 1942. The young man never had any desire to be involved in the military at all. But after the attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan, like many other Americans, Henri's plans changed a bit. By February 1943, he was drafted as an aviation cadet in the United States Air Force. There he was trained as a radio operator and radio technician, and upon completion he was assigned to the 52nd Bomb Squadron where he served as a radio gunner, and I have to say, he served quite successfully. By the time the phosphorus nearly burned through Henri, he already had a record, 2 air medals. It's a military award of the United States Armed Forces for outstanding achievements during combat operations in the air. What could have gone wrong? There's always something to see. For Henri, the event occurred on April 12, 1945, while he was a radio operator on a Boeing B-29 Superfortress attacking a chemical plant in Koriyama. That day, there were 11 crew members on board with him, and all of them, in addition to their main jobs, also had related duties. Henri not only coordinated the planes by radio, but also dropped phosphorus grenades through a hatch in the Boeing's floor. The grenades exploded in the air before hitting the ground. They exploded in the air, creating a powerful smoke signal for the other United States Armed Forces planes participating in that operation. Let me remind you that the use of phosphorus munitions is a crime against humanity and a violation of the 1949 Geneva Conventions. Which, of course, doesn't stop some idiots from the East from using them even today, but that's another story. So, Henri would first pull the pin and immediately after that throw the grenade into a special chute from which it would fly down. In fact, the guy had about 10 seconds before the chemical reaction with oxygen started and the phosphorus inside the grenade ignited. Pretty dangerous, especially considering that if something went wrong, putting out white phosphorus on board the plane would be almost impossible. We'll get back to that in a moment. I have to pause the story for a minute to tell you something interesting. That's just future me without a mustache, everything's fine. Secondly, while searching for video materials to edit this video, I came across an interesting clip about the Boeing B-29. This video was uploaded to YouTube in 2017. It's impossible not to notice the Z symbols on the American planes that bombed Japan in 1944. Actually, the same goes for the letters V and O. I was, of course, quite surprised. I found more photos online of these planes with the same letters. However, there isn't much information on the internet about these letters on United States military equipment. I showed these shots to my friend fighting in Bakhmut, and he said he had no idea what it meant. It's worth noting that B-29s were also marked with other letters. In any case, I think the info is interesting and I couldn't help but share it. I'd like to read your thoughts on this, especially if you know something about it in the comments. Alright, let's get back to the main story about Henri Ervin. Henri kept tossing grenades into the chute until he found a defective one. The pin on one grenade malfunctioned, causing the phosphorus to ignite early and preventing Henri from having time to throw it into the chute. And then a real nightmare began. Smoke grenades aren't very dangerous since they're not made to cause shrapnel injuries, but they can still be risky up close. The temperature of burning white phosphorus just for a moment is over 800 degrees Celsius. That's exactly what Henri Ervin experienced then. Besides the fact that his body was literally on fire, the grenade canister hit his face with tremendous force, breaking his nose and almost completely cutting off his ear. In general, many sources mention it as a phosphorus bomb. However, Henri himself refers to it as a grenade.
I was squeezing grenades when it happened.
Perhaps the answer is that it was one of those similar grenade models which was also called a bomb. In any case, the main thing is that Mr. Ervin was completely covered in burning white phosphorus. And that's a nasty thing, my dear, because once it gets on a surface, any surface, it will keep burning until it completely burns out. Unless you manage to completely isolate it from oxygen. That will stop the burning process. Unfortunately, a regular fire extinguisher won't suffice here. Plus, let's not forget that the smoke grenade did its job efficiently and quickly filled the entire aircraft cabin with smoke. This was a major issue. The pilot couldn't see the instrument panel or anything else. As a result, he lost control of the Boeing and it quickly lost altitude. At that moment, despite intense pain, Henri realized something. He probably wouldn't survive. And secondly, that the phosphorus could burn through the metal floor and reach from the bomb bay. And then not only he would die, but all his comrades as well. He had to act very quickly, and that's exactly what Ervin did. Completely blinded by touch alone, he found the smoke grenade on the floor, picked it up, and started making his way to the cockpit to throw it overboard. Almost immediately, Henri bumped into the navigator's folding table attached to the wall in front of the pilot's cockpit. So he grabbed the hot shell with his bare right hand, pressed it to his shoulder, and with his left hand lifted the table to get through. And in just those few seconds, it took the phosphorus burned right through the guy to the bone. The scene was hellish, with total chaos on board. However, no one could see him because of the incredible smoke from that smoke grenade. And in fact, no one really understood what had happened except for Henri himself, who, having reached the porthole, shouted to the co-pilot to open it for him. When this was done, Henri immediately threw the grenade overboard, after which he collapsed on the floor exhausted but remained conscious. The smoke cleared just in time when the Boeing was only 100 meters above the water. Fortunately, the pilot managed to pull the giant plane out of the dive and bring it to the right altitude. Only after the crew recovered from the smoke did everyone see Ervin, who was still conscious and, let me remind you, still on fire. The crew tried to put out his burning clothes, but they couldn't do it. The only thing they eventually did was give him morphine to ease his condition a bit. Henri needed medical help, immediately and first class at that. B-59, named Los Angeles, made an emergency landing on the island of Guam. Ervin was taken straight to the local hospital, but even the doctors were baffled. Henri's condition was assessed as extremely critical. They said he could just die at any moment. The crew members turned to the leadership, telling them that each of them owed their lives to Ervin, Henri Ervin. And he, more than anyone, deserves the Medal of Honor, which, by the way, is the highest award you can receive in the United States Army. Usually, it takes quite a lot of time to receive it, with checks, petitions, and all that bureaucracy. Besides, you can't just open a cabinet with medals and take out the Medal of Honor from there. The closest one was in Hawaii, and it was actually a display exhibit in a museum. However, the crew members did everything they could, pestering everyone there so that this award would reach Henri, their comrade, while he was still alive. And it worked. Army Air Forces officials, led by Major General Curtis LeMay, approved awarding Henri Ervin the Medal of Honor in an extremely short time. It was urgently delivered from Hawaii to Guam and presented to him there in the local hospital. Besides that, Henri's condition was very bad. By the time he got his medal, everyone had already said goodbye. But surprisingly, despite everything that happened to him, despite all the doctor's grim predictions, at some point Henri's condition started to improve. He himself recalls that he simply asked God for it. After 30 months and 41 plastic surgeries, his vision was restored, and Henri regained use of his injured hand. In 1947, he was discharged from the army as a disabled sergeant major. After that, he worked for another 37 years with veterans who were wounded during combat missions at the local hospital in the city of Birmingham. The Birmingham in America, not the Peaky Blinders one. Henri Ervin's life ended in 2002 when he was 80 years old. What does the Medal of Honor mean? What does it mean to you? I'm not saying that I'm a hero. Freedom doesn't come for free. I want to remind you that this channel lives and thrives solely thanks to your support. Subscribe to buy me a coffee or buy my mugs. By the way, my favorite one is the one that, let's say, reveals itself when you pour hot water into it. Here, take a look. Percentage of the sales will go to support our wonderful army. Dear ones, if you watch this video all the way to this very second, know that you are the best. I appreciate it so much, incredibly. You are the best. You are wonderful. Take care of yourself and your health. It's very important. You are important. Well, this was Vu Sanya with you. See you next week. In the meantime, watch this video or this one. Well, correction, maybe not next week if a video turns out like the previous one. With few tubes, checking takes long and people keep distracting me.